Good morning. We're out in the woods in the Eden Valley in Cumbria to do a stove video. And before you click off, this is about remote versus canister top stoves. I'm going to talk about features, stability, practicality of use, safety features, and what my personal preference is. And I really appreciate it if you would comment about what your favourite system is and what you thought of this video. And more importantly, when you're on holiday in the Lake District or a mountainous area and you want to get up early and get up in the high hills, but the family just wants a leisurely time, little low walks going around cafes, how do you cope? This is my way of coping. It's getting up early and bringing you some content and going out for a sneaky wild camp, but that's what I really want to know. Right, what kit do we have for this video? We've got a Fire Maple Polaris pressure regulated canister top stove. We've got a Fire Maple Polaris remote canister stove, not to be confused with the Fire Maple cooking system, also called Polaris. We've got two gas canisters that are identical in amount. We've got a stabilizer, a small skillet, some windshields, and the Alp kit Mighty Stacks titanium pans, and then importantly the nano presso with the capsule kit, some capsules and a spare one because nobody likes a burst capsule, and then most importantly that. So let's talk about features. So firstly, this is obviously compact. The canister top stove weighs 77 grams and it'll fit quite nicely in this 800 milliliter titanium pot with a gas canister, perhaps room for one or two other bits and bobs, but the remote canister stove in my hand there just about fits in, and if you were to put that in there, there would be room for utensils but no gas. So of course, if you use a bigger 1200 milliliter pot, that'll fit in there with some utensils, and that weighs 183 grams. Now this is obviously heavier, but there's going to be a few things you need to add to each one to make it work. So they're not pure standalone things, are they? Pun intended. So to unfold the Polaris canister top, it's got this gorgeous system that just folds out here. And incidentally, I've been using the Soto Windmaster quite a lot over this last 2 years, and I'm shifting over to this one. There's going to be a full review coming up soon, so if you haven't already seen the remote canister stove full review, I'll put a link to that above. But keep an eye on this playlist and like and subscribe to this channel, because coming up there's going to be a full comparison between this, the Soto Windmaster, and a non-pressure regulated stove, the Fire Maple Buzz. And incidentally, I bought some of this kit, like for instance this Polaris, but Fire Maple kindly sent me this Polaris canister top, but you can be reassured that my comments and thoughts are purely my own. Bing! So the remote folds out like this. So to make it work, you really need a base for the canister top, and that adds an extra 32 grams for that OEX one. And really, for safety, for a remote canister stove, you need a base like that, especially if you're using it over a ground sheet as wind protection. That only adds 5 grams. So this is bumped up to over 100 grams for this system, and this one is approaching 190 grams. So the margins are brought a little bit closer together once you add some necessary kit. Okay, so we're going to boil some water and have a coffee, and we'll time that. And just add, these stoves are both pressure regulated. This is also called micro regulated in some quarters, but importantly there's a diaphragm in here that regulates the pressure of the gas that's coming down here, and that's really important in cold weather or if your gas is getting rather low. And I think that's a thing we can't go back from now. I would never use again a stove that wasn't pressure regulated, just because it makes so much difference. Again, have a look at that in the remote canister stove tests. I'm going to be doing some further testing as well regarding what happens when the gas gets really low. So pressure regulated is the way to go, and of course both of these have a wind protected burner head. Great stoves. Right, we've got 2 lots of 500 millilitres. Woo. Now, on stability, straight away, I'm kind of looking a bit dodgy on this one. I know it's on a curved surface, but one of the things we love about nature naturally is how they are, nothing is uniform. But I already trust that a little bit more. Now, if I've got that on there's a little bit of a wobble on it. And that is a little bit more unstable, and you can see it's just a higher centre of gravity, and it's not too bad with a small pan like that. But imagine if this was a lot fuller and a lot higher. It's starting to get significantly high there. Interestingly, I'm on a little lump there with this one. Let's just move it. That's better. Lovely. Right, okay. So let's put a stopwatch on from now. I'm not timing this exactly. But I just want to see what the difference is between them. And I'll have a nice cup of coffee when it's done. Okay, that's them both boiling. That was about 1:17 before they were both there, pretty damn quick. A few notes on safety. When I'm using the canister top and I'm putting my hand down here, I am aware that if I was to wobble that, this would all fall off straight onto my hand, whereas controlling the remote, my hand is away from there. What affects boil times and cooking significantly, however, is wind. I'm going to put a link below to a rather excellent, very nerdy video by a guy I super enjoy. I think he's called Gear Junkie. Absolutely excellent stuff on wind. And I did my own testing on wind versus stove efficiency, and I'll put a link of that in the description below as well. Please have a look at that one. It was a bit of a lockdown madness. Now, with a canister top stove, you can't use a windshield all around. That is a no-no, because this gets very, very hot. And again, I'll put a link below by a video from Paleo Hiker MD, and he actually managed to melt an aluminium windshield just by placing it around. And if you don't believe me, I have personal experience of that when I was using a jet boil years ago pre-YouTube, and I was using a windshield around it in really windy conditions, and afterwards the plastic around the bottom of the jet boil burner had all melted. So you could only ever use a windshield around one side of a canister top stove like this, whereas with a remote stove it's perfectly fine to wrap it around entirely Just being careful here, I don't want to get burnt. And you can get a nice little windproof capsule around there, and that helps retain some of the heat. And if you get that nice and close in there, a nice little pocket of heat, and significantly improves cooking efficiency. Right, time for a coffee. The Nanopresso is a great system, comes with a cup inside there, and this is the receptacle for the water. But I find what you always have to do is prime it first to get some heat into the system. So what you do with this is just screw the top off here and pop the capsule in this basket. It does come with the original coffee ground basket, but I've had inconsistent results with that. And then what you have to be careful with here, just chuck that warm water out there, is make sure that's all nice and tight, and just pump it nice and slow to get up to pressure, and then ease it through there. There we go. And then it just starts to nicely make an espresso. There we go. Lovely. Lovely dog. I'm lucky to have two gorgeous dogs. Megan's a pedigree dog from Yorkshire, from a long line of kennels. We had another dog for 13 years that was from the same kennel. And Honey is a Romanian rescue. Scruff, aren't you? But they're best buddies. Right, off you go. Go play. Go on. A couple of other notes on safety features. You have to be very careful that this hose doesn't get kinked. Now, the swivel system on this really helps, but this is my OEX Vulcan that I've used for a number of years, and it had been working quite well. Not great cold weather performance, but that's another story. But a couple of camps ago, I was rather careless and let the hose kink like that. Smelt burning rubber, noticed my mistake and moved it, and then I took it. And the next camp I thought, oh, this is burning really slowly here, and then all of a sudden there's a yellow flame coming out of here, so obviously I've burnt the hose inside. So this has got to go in the bin, because you can't get a replacement hose for it, and I've tried. 1 out of 10 for customer service, by the way, OEX and Go Outdoors, because they really don't have a system for replacing parts like that, or any decent kind of contact system for spare parts. I'm not puckering up here, but much better with the Fire Maple system in terms of spares availability. Now, both of these stoves have great controllability. That's up and down on the remote, and then up and down on the canister's top. Let's do just like a little simmer test. So a little bit of boiling water. I think for the canister top stove, this pan that's about hand span across is about the right size, really. I've got the larger primer skillet, but I wouldn't recommend it for that stove. So there's the hot spot in the middle, and that's if I turn that up. Still quite a hot spot. Swap that over. Turn that off before I put my hand in it. Just turn this up a little bit. Get that. So you can see that's a larger patch there. So for simmering versatility, the remote stove wins. Back at base, I'm going to be doing some wind testing and we'll see which fares the better. I would suggest this being lower will probably do better. Okay, what we have is our two stoves with a 1.5 mile an hour breeze blowing on them, and there's 500 millilitres of water inside. I hope you can see that. So we get a bit of flame distortion, but the breeze is even from each side. So let's see how long that takes to come to a boil. And that's 2 minutes 20, and the remote stove is coming to a boil, and the canister's top is still well behind there. Okay, so that's 3 minutes 16. That one's come to a boil. So that's pretty amazing. So it's taken nearly a minute longer with the breeze for the remote canister stove, and then a minute on top of that, so pretty much double the time for the canister top stove. I apologise that I haven't weighed the gas on these tests, but I think the burn times speak for themselves. And there's just a shot of the flames in that wee breeze there, and I'll turn them right down to a simmer. Again, I think you can see that the canister top is still more affected. Definitely a win there. Let's try making this wind really close. See what happens. Again, that's pretty good. And there's that one, quite close. Yeah, I think with that fan just there going really close, the remote wins out. I don't know if it's the deeper dish or the larger cup, but it's certainly performing better. So just in summary, I think you've guessed which my favourite is. It's the remote stove, the Polaris. That will fit in that with some utensils, and I'll keep the gas separately, which I often do anyway. I do use a canister top just for little overnighters, but I'm often cooking with kids and dogs around, as you've seen this morning. I think this just offers a safer system. So let me know in the comments below which your favourite is. Cup of coffee down the woods with my favourite friends, and that includes you guys. Cheers.